The Legend of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Part 1, Chapter 28, Ninjas. Written and performed by Joseph Chambers and based on characters created by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. The Turtles entered the building, but before they could get very far, an alarm sounded and red flashing lights activated all across the warehouse. The whole place was plunged into a deathly blood-coloured glow. "Uh-oh!" Michelangelo yelled over the growing noise of the alarms. Raphael shouted to Donatello, "Hey, any chance you could get the alarms off?" Donatello pelted over to a metal box below the alarm and let his three-fingered hands dance over the wires, rewiring this and taking out that. He was done in a matter of seconds, but by that time it was far too late. About 60 foot soldiers rammed through the double doors to the warehouse and powerfully pelted towards the turtles as a great mass of metal, flesh and cloth. Then suddenly a green blur seemed to pounce at the oncoming crowd of ninjas. "Leo!" The party of three yelled, delighted as their brother set to work, bringing various ninjas to the ground. Raph and Mikey both took to the fight, unsheathing their weapons and throwing themselves into the raging madness. Donatello seemed to stay back, ready to make a run for the rest of the building once his brothers didn't need backup. One ninja managed to creep around Donatello and attempted to attack him from behind. Donatello gave the man a hard and powerful reverse kick to the groin, and the ninja fell to the ground, whimpering. He then violently spun his bow in his hands at a very rapid rate, which resulted in a few ninjas attempting to approach him and simply ricocheting off, unable to predict where his bow would be next. Occasionally, he would bring his bow sharply down on an enemy, resulting in the worrying crunch of their bones and the occasional spatter of blood. Meanwhile, his brothers were busying themselves with an attack of their own. Michelangelo was attacking at random with lots of jumps and spins, which would make anyone watching feel rather dizzy. Leonardo was using his swords in a very organised and by-the-book way to block attacks and repel various other ninjas present. He was very determined not to seriously hurt anyone and seemed to be using his powers in an almost hesitant way, only doing what he absolutely had to do. Raphael, on the other hand, seemed very unafraid of hurting the enemy and was using his legs and arms in a maniacally precise manner to punch and kick everything in sight. At one point, he swung one arm up above his head to block a ninja's punch and thrust his other arm forward to punch the ninja in the chest. This winded the ninja, whose silver metal headgear fell off to reveal an 11-year-old Japanese girl with very short black hair and serious, cold-looking facial features. She appeared to be dressed in a similar but smaller version of the armour the Shredder wore. However, she noticeably lacked the 2-foot bladed extensions to her gauntlets. She bared her teeth and charged at him with great menace, swinging wildly at the turtle what appeared to be a small, flat, knife-like weapon in her hand, which Raphael recognised as a Japanese tanto. He attempted to block her attacks and was successful for a few seconds, but then became cocky and got her movements wrongly predicted in a moment of pride. She managed to slice into his wrist. It was a very deep cut, and glowing teal blood spurted out animatedly, indicating it had reached an artery. He screamed, more in frustration than pain, but attempted to continue fighting. Whilst he was staggering about, attempting to get his bearings, the girl attacked again with a powerful kick to his face. He was unable to block this in time and fell to the ground awkwardly, his own blood pooling around him like a shadow, but growing in size like an infection. Michelangelo saw this and ran across the warehouse to defend his brother, but not before spinning and jumping to kick a ninja trying to stop him from doing so. He then sprinted full pelt towards the fight and pushed the young Kunoichi out of the way with stupendous force, causing her to fall back into the crowd and be lost from sight. He then let Raphael grab his shoulder with his uninjured left arm so he could drag him away from harm's way. Michelangelo let off a smoke bomb so they could disappear to get to the other side of the warehouse and hide. When they reached the other side of the warehouse and hid behind a couple of crates, Raphael slipped out of consciousness and his eyes closed gracefully. "Leonardo!" Michelangelo screamed desperately. The leader of the team was quick to hear this and scrambled over to his injured comrade. He swiped away ninjas with his swords as he catapulted towards them, using the new mist to his advantage to stealthily whack an adult kunoichi in the side of her head with the pommel end of his katana. He was then briefly stopped by one particularly short and crafty ninja who slid a crate towards him. His foot was suddenly and painfully squashed between the heavy crate and the metal wall. Leonardo failed to scream out loud, but instead very quickly used his fist to pound at the top of the crate until it splintered, and then he lifted his foot from the wreckage. He then continued his desperate rush towards his wounded brother. "How bad is it?" Michelangelo cried desperately once Leonardo had arrived next to him. "Is he going to die?" "Calm down," Leonardo began, on the verge of not being calm himself. "We need to get out of here quick." He was cut off by the sound of the metal wall of the warehouse 3 meters away from him, splitting open with a great ripping din. The beast that had crashed through the wall turned its ugly head to face them, and it was a sight that could only truly be seen to be believed. On all fours in the metal wreckage of the wall was a man-sized rhino in a red vest and black jeans, both of which were rather torn. He seemed to have a pierced ear and a scar across his mouth, which led from slightly above his top lip to just below his bottom lip. His arms, legs and torso were very muscular and powerful looking. Even weirder still was what followed this beast from hell. It appeared to be another man-sized animal in the form of what seemed to be a wild boar or warthog, although he, unlike his friend, was standing on 2 legs. He was wearing a similar outfit to the rhino, only it was not as damaged. He had no piercings but had extensive arm tattoos and a purple mohawk. He looked more on the thin side than his friend did. He also appeared to be carrying a large black bulky gun in both hands. It looked awfully complex and seemed to have some parts missing, suggesting it was either badly damaged or not yet fully assembled. Overall, the warthog looked fearfully ridiculous and yet somehow ridiculously fear-inducing. The snarls on both the rhino and the warthog's faces made Leo and Mikey get the idea that they may not be there to make friends.